we're actually honoured to have Trevor, the Minister for Waste Reduction and Environmental Management, or Minister for the Environment. It kind of sounds like you've got a hotline to Greta. Tell me a little bit more about this role.
Well, thanks, Kevin. Thank you for having me on, and please do call me Trevor, especially when I'm, in my own home space dealing with small businesses, and here in Brisbane, we can entirely dispense with the formalities. So my usual job in business as usual times, and we're certainly not in business as usual times, but my usual job has been to manage the federal government's first foray into the recycling and waste management sectors. We've seen over the last 10 years, the states and territories try to do their best, but head off in some different directions when it comes to things like waste levies, container deposit schemes, the definition of what is a single-use plastic bag, and so on. And the Prime Minister has seen a very big opportunity to drive a bit of national leadership when it comes to recycling and waste management, to bring all the parties to the table to lead a more harmonised approach, and also to co-invest in bringing on shore a lot of the facilities and the infrastructure that we're going to need to get a more circular economy here onshore, and not have to rely on some of those offshore solutions. So I guess, as we've been seeing waste get shipped around our region, and also hundreds or thousands of kilometres across state boundaries in Australia, that's a sign that things haven't been operating the best way they could. And so the Prime Minister's created my role that I've had recently to try to help us address that. So people will have seen us announcing bans on exporting waste plastics and tyres, for instance, co-investing, bringing the states and territories to the table. And as late as early March, we held a plastics summit in Canberra to bring a lot of the stakeholders together to try to phase out unnecessary and single-use plastics. And I guess I'll leave it there by just noting it shows how much the world has changed in the 3.5 weeks since that plastic summit, when I was leading that in Canberra, and when the Treasurer was preparing to hand down a surplus budget.
A plastic summit. So I've got a picture in my head of all these Lego characters. They're having a chat around the ministerial table. So yeah, as you've said, things have changed. 3 weeks. I can't remember when the first announcement must have only been a week ago, because everything dates back to the 20th of March, and how different the world and the environment is just 7 days later. You mentioned to me earlier that Cabinet's in a meeting at the moment to discuss even more updates to the different stimulus package that they've got, because they keep finding, with each problem that they're solving, they're just finding the next layer down, that's only natural when you're trying to go through things so rapidly. And I very much appreciate that. The first stimulus package was really, really quite minor. The next one, covered a lot of those holes and was, 10 times that size. How much further are we going to have to go?
Well, it's a fantastic summary of the situation and how fluid it is, Kevin. I think lots of people out there would love to see a sort of a plan or a methodology where we said, this is exactly what's going to happen each day for the next few months until we're through the other end. But sadly, that's not the world that we're living in. What I can assure everybody, and especially in the small and family business sector, is that government is operating more efficiently and less bureaucratically at the highest levels than I have ever seen before. Recognising my special links to small business, I've got a direct line of communication right through to the top, and they are actively encouraging me to collate the case studies, the stories, the challenges and the opportunities that are seen by small businesses, not just here in Brisbane, but across Australia, so that I can quickly get those through to assist the decision making as it's going forward. As you said, it's a very complicated world out there in small and family business world. It's very different sector to sector, market to market. Even a lot of competitors are structured very differently and finding very different operating scenarios ahead of them. And so that direct line of communication is something I'm using very, very heavily. I've really appreciated the honest and frank feedback that I've been getting from small business owners right across Brisbane. No, I have. I know.
We've seen some of the frank discussion on our site too. So,
and I accept that it's really, really tough out there. It is. My family are all small business owners. My folks are at their shop counter right now, serving customers and dealing with exactly the sorts of challenges that many small businesses are facing right across Australia. And as the former CEO of the National Retail Association, I've also got some very deep links, obviously, to a lot of retailers and a lot of small businesses who are letting me know all of the time how tough it is. I'm feeding that in, and it's been interesting to see how quickly some of the ideas that have been put forward or the challenges that have been presented have already been picked up and dealt with by the National Cabinet and announced by the Prime Minister in the previous tranches of announcements that have been made. That's going to be the process going forwards. Nothing here is set and forget. Every single day we're remeasuring what's going on. We're measuring, on the health and medical side of things, what the cases and the transmission looks like, and what the causes of that are, and what the modelling shows will happen to that going forwards. We're also looking at all of the economic indicators that we can, the number of customers that agencies like Centrelink are dealing with, and we're getting all of this anecdotal evidence from the ground, from the coalface, from businesses as well. And every single day we're remeasuring and we're deciding what the right policy suite is going forwards and how we can continue to improve. That's going to mean things get more complicated rather than less as we deal with more and more specific issues in particular sectors or markets. So things are going to get more specific rather than less, and that's going to be a source for confusion for some, and we accept that. And that's why what we're doing here today, Kevin, and what you do daily is just so incredibly important. So I've got the opportunity to tell people, frankly, how we see it and what's there on the table already to help them, but also for me to receive the ideas and the challenges that are being set out by your group of listeners so that I can take them straight back, feed them into further decision making, and hopefully see their challenges or their ideas adopted in further rounds of announcements.
Now, people may not realise, but you are the minister or the representative for Brisbane in our federal parliament, and you do have a sneaky backdoor look at what we're saying from time to time. So, it's important that people do realise that, for good and for bad. Like you're happy to look at the criticism so that you can look at how we can, as long as it's not just complaining, so that we can look at how we can create solutions and everything else. When I reached out for you to come on and have a chat with me about this, I think it was within 15 minutes you'd responded and said, I'd love to, which was fantastic. So we really appreciate the support that we've got there. We have got a couple of particular case studies that we talked about. And we do know that around particularly the sole trader, there's a lot of confusion around the whole PAYG, tax withheld, and the cash incentive and all that sort of stuff. And it gets even more confusing if you're a sole trader, not operating as a company, but then have staff involved as well. Do they qualify for that incentive? How does that incentive work? There's a lot of confusion around that particular one.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Kevin, and you're right, and there is a lot of confusion there, and some of that stems from the fact that the phrase sole traders includes a lot of different businesses operating in very, very different ways. Broadly, I would respond to it by saying the first thing to take into account is whether you're employing people or not. As you said, some sole traders employ people, some of them employ themselves officially on their books, others don't. If you are employing people, then the cash flow measures that the federal government has put in place will mean that you get at least $10,000 up to $50,000 in coming months, and then that amount again thereafter, according to the timing that you lodge your activity statements. That's not funny money. It's not some sort of credit that offsets your other taxes. This is a $10,000 amount that will go directly into the account that you put your PAYG withholding into. You can use it to pay wages. You can use it to pay rent. You can use it to pay your electricity or other things. It can be processed as a refund for almost all of the businesses that are going to get it. The only asterisk there is people who are well behind in terms of their tax arrangements. If they owe over a certain amount, they might not get the benefit of it. But for everybody else who's on top of their accounting, who's on top of their lodgements of their activity statements, $10,000 minimum in your account in coming weeks, and then double that amount the lodgement or so after that. For those small sole traders who don't employ people and don't count themselves as employed on the business in terms of paying themselves a wage through their business structure, we have done something very different for them. There is a payment called the job seeker payment, which sole traders and small business owners and self-employed people are eligible for. And it has no asset means testing. It has no wait time. The only testing that there is an income test. And it's a case of declaring what your income is. So I accept if people who are lucky enough to have a partner who's drawing a salary in some other place, they may not be entitled to it because they're fortunate enough to have another person in the household earning over a certain amount. I think it's about $48,000 or so. But for everybody else, if you're a sole trader, you've got no other sources of income, you can go onto MyGov right now. You can click a button there which says, I intend to claim this. So no need to do all of the paperwork now. You can deal with that in coming weeks, and Centrelink will contact you proactively if you do what I'm saying. You will be eligible for the job seeker payment. And on top of that, you'll be eligible for something called the coronavirus supplement. And what that means is that all of the sole traders in that position who don't employ people, but are using their business as their only source of income, they will be eligible for up to and around about $1,100 a fortnight going forwards. They won't have to shut down their business. They won't have to go through any of the usual hoops. There won't be any asset testing. That's going to be $1,100 in the pockets of those sole traders each and every fortnight for the time being.
And I understand that even with that, you can still be creating an income in your business. It just starts to reduce from that 48,000 and over and 50 cents in the dollar or so. So with that,
yes.
Yeah. So with that, you're helping people earn or stay at that $75,000, $76,000 mark.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. So your income, the income in your small business doesn't have to be reduced to zero in order for you to qualify. What a lot of people will find is that they might not receive the full amount of the job seeker payment, depending on what their ongoing income looks like. But even if they're eligible for just $1 of that job seeker payment, they will be eligible for the full $550 of the Corona supplement on top of that. So at the very least, people who are in that band are going to be receiving the $550 Corona supplement per fortnight.
There we go. And that's something that in my reading of stuff, I didn't realize at all. So that's fantastic. And hopefully that gives a few people, there's at least a little bit coming in to help supplement that no matter what. That was the job seeker. So it doesn't matter whether somebody is, whether their partner is earning an income, that will be brought into the means test. Doesn't matter the structure of their business in relation to that. So if somebody had their business set up as a company and then they're falling on that challenging time, can they still go to Centrelink with that?
It's less about whether they're an incorporated business or not. It's more about the style of their source of income. So if you're a sole trader and you're surviving entirely on what the net proceeds of your business are, or you count as self-employed, you should be eligible. What I will do, Kevin, is send you the full fact sheet on eligibility. And what I would say to you and your listeners is if there are any unintended consequences for how it's set up, if there's anyone falling through the cracks because of business structure or so on, I want to know about it ASAP. We have given the minister in charge of this huge discretion to overcome those sorts of challenges. And I know that even with the best and most simple rules, An organisation like Centrelink is occasionally going to get it wrong, case by case, despite their very, very best efforts. And that's exactly the role that an office like mine can play. We can concierge those, we can overcome administrative errors when they occur, or if there's a policy issue that's holding it back, I want to know about it and I'll feed it through and we can try to fix it.
Fantastic. And of course, you'll send me a link for where people should send this information that I can share with everyone. We'll put it in the comments after this.
If people can't find my contact details online, I am not doing my job well at all.
Let's just make it super easy for them. So I'm a big fan of simple as always best. So that helps hopefully with the sole trader question. And please, if there are other questions, don't hesitate to put them in the link here. And Trevor's team will be following through and having a look at this particular feed for individual situations as well. Yeah. The other thing that was great confusion for people is rents. Because of course, a lot of us are, renting office space or renting retail space, and we're stuck paying. We're signed in leases that may last years and don't know how we're going to get through this time period. And it's something that's really quite challenging, because one of the problems is that a lot of landlords aren't big, rich, fat cats and corporations and that sort of thing. They're everyday Australians that have bought an investment property that may be a commercial property. So it's not as easy to think, oh, they've got the money, they can cover that, they can wait. What's happening there?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kevin. Can I tell your listeners, this is one of the top issues on the priority list of the National Cabinet right now. So the National Cabinet, that's all of the premiers and chief ministers and the Prime Minister and the experts around the table. They are meeting right now as we speak. And one of the top items on their agenda is this question of rents and what we can do to help give not just some guidance, but some relief in the areas where that's needed the most. You're right, that can be a difficult balancing act if we don't get it right. There are vulnerable people on both sides of the equation there. At some stage, possibly halfway through our conversation right now, the Prime Minister is going to come out and talk about what the National Cabinet has just been talking about and what it's just decided. I don't know for sure that rents will be resolved at today's meeting, which is happening right now, but it's on the top of their agenda. So if it's not today, it will be tomorrow or the next day. Rather than giving some advice and recommendations right now, what I would do is promise you this. Either in an hour or so's time when the Prime Minister comes out and announces it, or probably tomorrow or the next day, there will be a lot to talk about here in terms of the government's response. How about I do this? I commit to you, Kevin, that as soon as that information is out, I will give you fact sheets on how that's going to work, and you can post it to all of your listeners, and I'll do the same and send it through all of my channels so that we can get that news out as soon as it's to hand.
Absolutely. Because it is, as we've been talking, 2 weeks ago, we were just we were thinking the coronavirus is, I had 2 holidays cancelled by then, but we won't go into that. I was actually booked to go on the Diamond Princess in April. So that got cancelled fairly quickly. Booked another holiday, which happened to get cancelled too. So looks like I'm here to stay for a while. The world's changing very, very fast, and things are very, you guys, I see that you're responding as quickly as possibly can with a considered approach. It may not be perfect in every time, and that's why there have been revisions already. I've said many times that I'd hate to be a politician. I'd hate the hours that you work. I'd hate the public scrutiny, and I don't think I'd survive for very long because I'd probably swear too much. So I'm really appreciative of the fact that you're so open with us and you're here to help. One of the persons said is, can an incorporated sole trader claim the COVID payment as well as the PAYG rebate? So if they've had a dip in business, can they register with Centrelink as well as claiming PAYG?
Potentially, yes. It's not one or the other. Yeah, so long as they fit the eligibility criteria for both are on the table, yes. So the business structure itself will receive that cash flow benefit, which is at least $10,000. But if your personal circumstances as a self-employed person or a sole trader are such that you've seen your own revenues fall in that sort of way, you could simultaneously be eligible for the job seeker payment and the coronavirus supplement. That's absolutely the case.
Fantastic. So, so there is more. And as we said, it is very much a changing landscape that we've got. And obviously there'll be an announcement any second now, as well as and it's not as if that's going to be the last statement. As more comes to light, would it be possible to get you back, and not every 5 minutes, but get you back another time once things have settled a little more and we feel like we're not going to have an announcement every other day?
Well, I look forward to the days when we're not having an announcement every single day, but at the moment it is necessary to respond to how quickly events are changing. Kevin, one of my big motivations for seeking elected office was specifically because I was so frustrated in some of my previous roles that I worried that not enough decision makers in government knew how small business really operated and how it really felt for small businesses at the coalface. So in a way, I feel like, these times are one of the very best opportunities for me to play that role and to feed through the voices and the challenges and the concerns of small business owners through to government. And I know that you said that you could never be a politician, but I promised you, even in other times, let alone times like this, it can be incredibly rewarding to help people and to get to the bottom of cases and to see those changes actually made. I mean, for full context, as a local member, as well as someone who's very passionate about small business, I have constituents right now who are stuck on cruise ships, including people in their 80s and 90s. I have people stuck in third world countries, including kids and students. I've got big businesses letting go significant numbers of people, and small businesses, closed or at risk of shutting down as well. Huge challenges, but also a huge need and an opportunity to help people. I want to do as much as I possibly can in that space, and I don't begrudge any of the feedback or the tone or anything at all that I get. I know people are doing it really, really tough out there, and every single one of those contacts is hugely appreciated. So I will definitely take you up on your offer to talk more in the future.
No, that would be great. So I promise not to call every 5 minutes, every time we have a new situation. But thank you very much for your time today. I really do appreciate it. It has been enlightening and it's shown that there are multiple opportunities there to be addressed at different situations. There is, of course, also the government being guarantor for 50% of loans that you can get with your financial institution. There's also the state government have announced packages, and so we'll try and speak to someone from there very soon as well. So thank you very much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
A pleasure, Kevin, and to all of your listeners out there, very best wishes for the time ahead. I've got to say, times could get a bit tougher before they start to get a little bit easier. So take care of yourselves, take care of other people around you and out there in the community. This is going to be one of those times when we have to pull together as Team Australia, because as the Prime Minister has said, 2020 is legitimately going to be potentially the toughest year of many people's lives. But at the same time, there are going to be some opportunities to do some new things. There's going to be the opportunity to work for many small business owners on your business rather than in it, potentially, if you've got a couple of weeks at home or so on. Grasp the opportunities with both hands, take care of yourself, and do keep engaging in the way that you have. That's incredibly important. And people like Kevin and I can keep trying to be the best authority voices we can to ensure that you're armed with the facts. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much, Trevor. One of the things that we are going to do starting on Monday is we're going to be scheduling up to 3 different learning opportunities every day from experts in their field to help you work on your business. So stay tuned for that. And also, we are going to drastically reduce the price of getting into the Brisbane Small Business Directory to make it easier for everyone to do business with each other. I know that when people post up in the group, does anyone know a plumber? They get absolutely smashed, and people have stopped posting those sort of questions into the group I know of because they're too scared of that overwhelm. So we're going to address that by acting appropriately with the directory so that we can get as many people in there, make it easier for us all to do business with each other. So thanks very much for watching today. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time, Trevor. I'm very grateful for that. And we will speak again very soon.
Thanks, everyone.